This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Much for Moshe, for everything you've done so far on this trip. Hashem yivarech oscha, shefa bracha v'atzlacha for all of your efforts. Shkoyach for Moshe. So we're here in the Shul of the Rosh Yosef, Rav Yosef Uskapa. Now I didn't want to mention at the kever, but he was the Rabbi of Shabtai Tzvi. I didn't think that was the makam to mention it, but he was Zakein, Muflag, Yosef Yeshiva, he was Shabtai Tzvi's Rebbe, and we're now in his Shul, so certainly this is a central Shul in the whole saga. What's most telling is there's only one set of Sfarim in this Beis HaKnesses, the Zohar HaKadosh, which was a very large contributor to the whole saga, namely, should someone of that age be so immersed in the Kabbalah. We mentioned that I need the reference in this week's Haftarah. I was reading it on Shabbos and I chapped it sitter. I knew that this week we were going to be speaking about this subject. It says Tzvi Nevel Sefartai, which is the reference always to Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi is always called Tzvi Nevel, B'lashon Nevela, even though Reb Chaim Falaji says we don't speak, there's a tradition not to criticize, but that's generally not accepted. And by the way, in this week's Haftarah, we also have the pasuk Pada Es Avram, which is the name of Avram Falaji's Sefer, whose yahrzeit is today. So our whole trip was already marumas in this week's Sedra. A few important facts about Shabtai Tzvi. Number one, he was born on Shabbos. That's why he's called Shabtai. Number two, he was born on Tisha B'Av. And we know Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av, and therefore that was also a signal that he used that he has something mystical and unusual about his career. Third of all, it was Tisha B'Av Shechal Yos B'Shabbos. And it was therefore a Tisha B'Av that was not fasted, which was also summoned and marshaled as an indication he will come and he will be Mavatel Tisha B'Av. And of course we know one of the first things he did was he was Mazalzel Mavatel Shivas B'Tamaz. And then of course he was Mavatel Tisha B'Av. So his birth, the day of his birth, the day of the week, the fact that it was Tisha B'Av, the fact that it was Tisha B'Av Shechal Yos B'Shabbos, these were all things that he marshaled, but mostly it wasn't him. Because anybody knows to be successful, you need a good PR director. And that was Nathan of Gaza, who as brilliant and talented as Shabtai Tzvi was, Nathan of Gaza was the mind behind the promotion of Shabtai Tzvi. Namely, he sent out letters to communities throughout the world promoting him, and he created a lot of the fervor. So Rabbi Yosef Uskapa was his Rebbe, and we know the Knesset HaGdolah, who the Chidah says was the preeminent halachic work after the Beis Yosef, also supported Shabtai Tzvi. Now Shabtai Tzvi was very smart politically, because he knew, we mentioned earlier, Knesset HaGdolah split his duties with Rav Aaron Lefafa. Rav Aaron Lefafa was the Dayan, and the Knesset HaGdolah was the teacher of Orach Chaim and Yardea. So they had a split role. They took over from the previous Rabbi Yosef Uskapa. Now, Shabtai Tzvi realized Rav Aaron Lefafa was against him. So one of the things Shabtai Tzvi did was he demoted Rav Aaron Lefafa, promoted the Knesset HaGdolah in order to put himself in better standing. These are all factors that contributed to this saga. But one thing you have to know is that the saga of Shabtai Tzvi reverberates till this very day. Not only because there's still crypto Jews who may follow it, or other movements that follow Sabbatianism. You have to know it happened in the aftermath of Spanish Inquisition and Chmielnicki pogroms, when the Jews were in a low point. And the depression and the demoralization that occurred from Shabtai Tzvi affected every single event in Jewish history since then, whether it's the reaction toward all the various movements, reaction towards Chasidus, towards movements that support Eretz Yisrael. It was always in the framework and in the glass and in the perspective of what happened in the saga of Shabtai Tzvi. So we always have to, before we pull ahead and live our future, everybody knows before you pull out of your parking spot, you always have to look in the rear view mirror. You can't pull out of a spot unless you look in the rear view mirror. Otherwise, you're asking for danger, you're asking for trouble. So as we forge ahead in our lives, with our communities, with our families, we always have to look behind us, look in the rear view mirror, look at the challenges that we faced, whether we were able to overcome them properly, and that will help us navigate the future Be'ezus Hashem, l'taiva u'levracha. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.